Welcome, everybody, to the Space Border Podcast. My name is Rock Castaldo, and we are live here on Friday the 13th. That's right, two Friday the 13th in a row as well. So we had one last month, and now we got another one, Friday the 13th. And why not bring one of my most mysterious friends and authors and thinkers, my buddy Laird Scranton. He's become a friend and a colleague over the last year of mine and a reoccurring guest. I don't interview many people. I have a very small group of reoccurring guests that I bring on my podcast, and I'm really pleased that Laird has become one of them. He's a really nice guy and a really great thinker, and he has a whole bunch of books out there, a whole bunch of new books coming out as well. So please pick those up. Laird will mention them in the show. And thanks for holding on the extra 10 minutes, buddy. And I appreciate you coming back on my show, and I'm really interested to see
Oh,
where this conversation goes.
oh, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this all week. This is great.
This is great. Yeah, it really is. And Laird, there's so many avenues that we can go down, even what we were talking about before the show. And I know we talked about Three Eye Atlas and that the last time, so I don't know if you wanted to touch on that at all today too as well. But we were talking big about like the different plasma wave movement, out like alpha waves and waves like this, and how it comes in the symbology of mythology as well. But before we get into that, you were talking about a little personal experience before. Did
Yeah,
you want to bring something like that up on the air, or was that
sure,
private?
sure, sure. Why not? There's in some of my vivid dreams, there is a space that I repeatedly go to, and I have a sense of where that space is physically located, and um, I have lots of information about the attributes of that space and details about it that are very specific to it. Well, yesterday, as sort of one of the sort of esoteric birthday presents I received on my birthday, my mother was only afraid I was going to be born on Friday the 13th. I was born on Thursday the 12th. But um, as one of the esoteric presents that I received, I discovered that there this dream space is an actual space, and it's located very close to where I thought it was located, and it has all of the little unique identifying attributes that I thought that it had, and I have photos of it now that could have been lifted directly out of my dreams. And to make matters worse, it's a kind of an ancestral space, but its proper name in a foreign language is the name of people I was named for. So
Interesting.
it has direct linkage to both the concept of my ancestry
Your
and to
ancestral. Yeah.
concepts of energy that we're going to talk about. So
That
I was
very
very
interesting.
pleased about that. Another interesting little gift yesterday to me was that I had had a long-standing friend request on Facebook sent out to the man who wrote the book called The Sirius Mystery, which introduced the Dogon, popularized the Dogon in modern culture.
Robert
His name is
Temple.
Robert Temple. He's a British academic.
I know him
And
personally. Yeah.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
yesterday he accepted my friend request, so I thought that's a nice little addition to my birthday.
yeah. You know what? To be honest, listen to this. Now, I was a little naive. I'll give it that. But I had grown up reading his book. Serious. I read Serious Mystery. I read what's the other one? I read The Crystal Sun. Right.
Right.
I read The Sphinx Mystery. I read a couple, one on I Ching. I read a whole bunch of his books, right?
Yeah, his new book on plasma actually pertains a lot to what we're going to talk
No,
about.
yes, but let me get there. I'm getting there for a second. So, I have a long time friendship with Professor Chandra Wickramansingh, right?
Right.
He's a world-renowned astrobiologist, and I've been friends with him for like 12 years. So, through my research, Professor Chandra said one day, I'm really close friends with Robert Temple. I go to lunch with him all the time, right? Here's his email address. So this is like, about 7 years ago, 8 years ago now. And so I email him. He gets back to me, and I kind of naive a little bit and excited to talk to him. I was
Yeah.
sharing my research with him
Yeah.
about the plasma, a
Right.
lot of it. And Laird, he would respond to me, very interesting. Tell me more. Just one sentence. And I'd be like, I didn't read into it. I'd be like, oh my God, Robert Temple's interested in my work, right? And I'm like, it's the Queen of Sciences of the head. And like,
That's good.
yeah. So I think I inspired him to do his own book. I
That's
literally
terrific.
did.
It's a good book. I agree with a lot of what he has to say in it. So
Yeah, well, he did. I didn't get it, but I saw some of the stuff in it, and he did his own research. But I think I
right.
sparked some of the ideas in him, whether he
Well,
wants to
that's
admit
great.
it or not. But I have the
Well,
receipts.
well, one thing that I love about the community researchers that I am a part of, which ranges from the very fringe to the very academic, is that it's a very cooperative group. Unlike a lot of the purely academic researchers, um, people are willing to help each other out and they're willing to share ideas. And if they learn something that they know applies to somebody else's field, they're willing to approach them and say, "By the way, this might be important to you. I can't run with it, but I know you probably could." And that's the kind of community I like to be a part of.
Yeah, me too. I unfortunately I've met a lot of people in the community where they they want to like they don't want to get put their minds together to find the truth. They want to instead be the one that has the
Right.
first.
They want the personal
Yeah,
credit for it.
yeah,
Renee
yeah.
Guidon says, "Look, this information has been discovered and rediscovered many, many
Yes,
times over the course of the history of humanity." He said,
so true.
"It makes no difference whatsoever who the people are who manage to recall it."
I
He
agree.
says, "That's not important in the least. What's important is the information."
I agree so much. I agree because I mean, obviously, if we're if we're sort of it's re-emerging again. I mean, it's right there written out for us thousands of years ago, right?
Right. So,
With the most amazing allegories and metaphors to deeply describe the spiritual significance of it, and all how all of it's merged together. Like it's not just one. This was before we had science, right?
right.
So they had like this metaphorical way of describing everything, and it's just really incredible because as 2025, 2026 comes, as we learn more and more, it's even with more precise accuracy proving.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I had started out using popularizers of science like Stephen Hawking and Brian Greene and people like that to confirm for me what the Dogon were saying or the Egyptians or the Buddhists or whomever were saying represented reasonable science. And so I would sort of use them as touchstones to say, okay, the Dogons say this. Is this a reasonable perspective? And then I would go verify it. I discovered that with Stephen Hawking's book, um, um, that I could take entire paragraphs and diagrams from his book and substitute, swap in what the Dogon say and what the Dogon draw, and I wouldn't change Hawking's book. It was the same stuff. It was intuitively the same stuff. So that was a good starting point. As time has gone on, I had to go deeper and deeper to more and more essential physicists to be able to verify things. And then suddenly it flipped to the point where the Dogon were presenting ideas to me that, from a traditional physics point of view, seemed radical, but that in fact were right on point. And that if you very carefully read what these physicists were saying in their books, that you realize that the Dogon had it exactly right. This hits exactly a perspective that de Broglie or Schrodinger or um, Gamow or any one of a number of other 1920s, 30s physicists surmise might be true. Dirac, Paul Dirac hits the nail on the head with some of the Dogen stuff. And so now it's the Dogen that are leading me to the next topic I need to explore with those physicists.
It's very cool. Yeah, I like how you have the Dogon connection. Do you feel like, and I want to get back to your dream for in a second, but do you feel like that in maybe I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but maybe your energy or just your cosmic path of art, because our DNA does sort of travel a cosmic conveyor belt before it becomes a human, right? It explodes out of a star and then travels around and then somehow comes into a human. So do you feel sort of your path once was as a Dogon? I know maybe your DNA isn't connected to it in this incarnation, but
Actually, I personally have no sense of actual reincarnation, and the Dogon also don't endorse it. The anthropologists who studied them said the only representation that compares to reincarnation for the Dogon is transmission through DNA of
Hmm.
character traits.
Yeah.
But what I do have is an extremely vivid sense of looping, that of jumping back into myself at a certain age and picking up sort of midway through my process with
Very
myself,
interesting.
and then uh, nostalgically regretting the life that I just leapt out of, which has all the attributes of the life I'm presently in. So I think I may have a, a unique viewpoint on that, and you can't really judge by me what might be true generally.
Well, that's true. You can't. And I don't. And I like that idea of the looping.
As a
Uh,
matter of fact, as I've studied the symbolism, there were many occasions where um, I would think to myself, if I had been the one who did to develop a system of symbols, I would have been sure to do blah blah blah. And then I go and I take a serious look and I realize somebody did that. The material often looks so much like my own work that it's confusing to me, because trying to imagine how could it possibly be my own work, but that's the way it plays for me. Part of the reason it's so easy for me is because it looks like my own work.
so true. Yeah. Uh, so when we go to sleep at night and we dream, I taken me many, many years to come to this theory, but I do feel that we are in a little maybe less dense version of who we are. Maybe even like a magnetic duplicate, maybe something like, because when I dream, I tend to fly a lot of my dream. Not
I
always,
do too. I do too.
right, and I'm going to a specific region, right, and it's more alive and more vivid than this reality can ever feel, and it'll wake me up out of the dream. It's so vivid.
Right. Okay. Now, the way we're talking about electromagnetic energy,
Yes.
that's really two energies that are interconnected with each other. And those energies are in a persistent oscillation with each other. They move between two bookended states. One of those states, in one of those states, magnetism is unresisted and electricity is dormant. And in the other extreme state, it's the reverse of that. The electricity is unresisted and the magnetism is dormant. Now, in between those two bookends, we have, according to the Dogon, 14 domains of energy that self differentiate, the same way that biological zones in water naturally self differentiate. The kind of life you have at the surface of the ocean is very different than the kind of life you have at the bottom. And the Dogen are saying that happens with energy, that in these domains you have different forms of conscious life that are not, they don't deify them, but they are conscious entities the same way we are. And that Rene Guénon says five of those, these are Hindu like levels of consciousness, five of those levels of consciousness actively participate in what we do. Now, those zones are distinguished from each other by a shifting pace of time in factors of 10. So as you move from zone to zone, the duration of a moment, depending on which direction you're going, the duration of a moment quickens by a factor of 10 every time you move to the next one of those zones. So if you've noticed in your dreams that time flows differently than it does when you're awake, oftentimes I can sleep for 2 minutes and feel like I've slept for 20 minutes. Or the reverse can
Yeah,
happen. I can feel like I fell asleep for just an instant and I wake up, it's a half an hour later. There's a time differential between the domains we're in when we're asleep.
for sure.
So that says to me that dreaming and sleeping is intimately connected to those energetic domains of energy. And we're depending on the situation, we're either moving into a slower domain or into a quicker one.
Yeah, and from what I'm uncovering, and this is goes with all my research, I do believe that it's possible for, and these regions might be related to the dynamic region of our magnetosphere, the magnetized environment that's a whirling vortex of plasma. You know,
Right. Now, Now, with that, that's an excellent tie-in to the first image I wanted to share for you. If I have the ability to share images here, let's see if
Yeah,
I.
let me set it up. I think I have to
Yeah, I've
right
got to
here.
share a screen here. Um,
You might have to send me a. I think I put multiple participants can share, so you should
okay,
be
let's
able
see if
to.
we can do this. Okay, now I have to figure out what it is I want to share. Let's
Yeah, now you just got to hit
start
that
with
share
this.
button, right? I think. Oh, that's me. Stop
Yeah,
share. You got to do it.
first I have to get the
Yeah, you
image
got to
to
hit it.
come up, which for some reason is not happening. Um, I've clicked on the entire screen. I my share button is not um,
Click share again.
the share button is not highlighted. No, hitting share. The share button is not highlighted. Here we go.
There you got it. Now it's going. I see what you're doing on your screen.
Bet. Let's see if it comes up. For some reason, it's not bringing up the image that I've got.
I don't know if people can see it either. What you're doing. Oh, there's a delay. That's why I can. I'll figure it out. And I'll see in a second if it's doing it.
I'm not sure what's going on with.
But as Laird gets that going, guys, you could find Laird's books on Amazon. You could find Laird's books all over, and he just released a few I think this year as well already. I'm gonna have to let me see advanced sharing options. Yeah, says your bandwidth is low. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you do either. Um, I'm not sure why we're not getting this come up. Um,
We're being prevented.
um,
Gremlins. It's those gremlins. Yeah, you tried hitting the share button again since.
that's very common. Okay, I can see the image now. Now let's see if I can get back to the share button. Yeah. Um, I'm gonna cancel the share and try again here.
Yeah, you'll get it. We'll get it.
Yeah.
Everybody too. I'll show
Um,
you guys some pictures of some some cool stuff too while he's getting that going. I have some pictures I could even pull up where I was
yeah, for
showing.
some reason the share button itself is not highlighted. I don't have the ability to click it. I have a cancel. I don't have a. I can get one level deep, but not any deeper.
And that story of journeying, taking your night journey, because the on at nighttime on the night side of the magnetosphere, it stretches out to this huge region, the magnetotail, and there's all these magnetic reconnection events that create auroras, and in the afterlife, and even the hero's journey into the underworld is describing this perfectly. It mirrors, like even in the Quran and in Islam, they have now your screen sharing. You got it. Now
Okay,
you
good.
got it.
Okay,
Now double click
what
to
we're
enter
looking
into full screen mode. Double click it. Yep. There you
at.
go.
Okay, it's telling me participants now see my screen. Now
Yeah.
to get into full screen mode.
Now you can pull up stuff. Be careful because the whole world can see what's on your computer now.
Oh, that's okay. I don't have
So you
anything
got your
I
nude you
don't
got
want people to
your nude birthday
see.
pictures from the other day. I want you to see. Your birthday suit from your birthday.
Yeah, can you see the image?
Yes. Yes, we see it.
Okay, now let's talk about this. We're talking about
Friday the
two book
13th.
two bookended states of electromagnetism. Okay. The Dogen prioritized magnetism over electricity. So the first state is okay. We're also talking about two directions of the energy moving. In one direction, it's materializing, the other direction, it's dematerializing. Well, from the materializing point of view, which is really a second phase, not a first phase, what we have happening is we have an unrestricted flow of electricity, which is the figure on the right, the zig with all those triangle zigzags, and that eventually leads to a state that's represented by the figure on the left, which is dormant magnetism.
Very cool.
Okay, now to
And
show
this
you
is
how precisely the Dogen have this, I'm going to compare for you. On
oh
top is how the
wow.
Dogen represented. On bottom is how science represents it. It's
Oh
exactly
wow.
the same thing. You can't really misunderstand what they're talking about. Now, so this first figure represents unresisted electrical flow. That's what they're talking about. The second figure actually represents the root state of Alphen waves, what are called Alphen waves. Alphen waves are a state where magnetism is really locked in to plasma.
Like a
It
transverse
has
wave.
it has not really emerged of its own. The Alphen waves follow the contours of the plasma. They're called longitudinal waves. They follow the longitudinal lines of the plasma.
Yep.
The Dogen refer to this as perfectly ordered energy, perfectly ordered magnetism. Um,
They propagate.
got something here that's not right. Low battery, it says. Got it. Okay. I had unplugged this last night to show my wife Risa some things. Okay, so again, the Dogen got this. I didn't know until about a month ago what this Dogen figure even represented. I knew that it corresponded to a root state of magnetism, and it does. On the right is how science represents what it's called the kinetic version of Alphen waves. When I say Alphen, it's spelled Alfven, and it's named for this man. He's a Swedish physicist named Hannes Alfvén. Now, the concept has direct correlations to ancient references, and the best place to find them, these particular references, is in Islam. And I'm presently most of the way through a book by Rene Guénon where he's talking about Islamic esotericism. The I had long been of the opinion that whoever put together the symbolic system had positive knowledge of what metaphors our scientists were using to explain things and what terminology they were using. For example, when there's a phase transition like water freezing into ice, or water vapor condensing into a liquid water, those phase transitions involve changes in energy that our modern scientists refer to as branching. In the ancient tradition, the symbol they use to represent it is a picture of a branch of wood. Because there were lots of different ways of potentially representing what was going on, it seemed odd to me that the ancient tradition consistently got the right metaphor, because if there are half a dozen different metaphors they might have used, what are the chances they're going to come up with just the right one to resonate with somebody like me who's trying to prove this stuff?
Yeah.
So I started to get a sense that maybe somebody in ancient times had positive knowledge of how we represent things. So with the Alphen waves, I finally have some pretty convincing confirmation of that, because the Alphen waves are named for the last name of this guy. there is no reasonable etymological connection between his last name and the
Or Gordon
ancient
Shumway.
term that the Islamics use. The Islamics use to represent it. Why should they call it Alfana, which is very close to Alfin,
Yeah.
when these in the modern day it was named for this guy, not for anything else? So I take that as positive confirmation that because of the way time works, there are two modes of time represented, one that's an overview and one that's in detail, that if someone could access that overview aspect of time, they could easily have knowledge of what we do. Now, those Alfvén waves, I said, are longitudinal. They flow along the lines of the magnetism or of the plasma, and they move with it. However, under certain circumstances, when those waves get disrupted, the longitudinal wave is transmuted into what's called a transverse wave, which
Yeah.
is perpendicular to the longitudinal wave, the same way that electricity and magnetism are perpendicular to each other. So we can guess that these are the root source not just of magnetism, but also of electricity.
Yeah. The
But when,
waves,
when,
the waves
when they
they
come,
yeah, the waves they can propagate through the plasma, and
right.
they
And
ride
as
they
they propagate, they create this vesica Pisces shape that's called a beat frequency.
yeah.
That structure is one of the essential structures of materializing energy. That anytime we see that shape, we can guess that Alfvén waves are involved in producing it.
And what's interesting too, Laird, you'll find this interesting in Sanskrit. They literally talk about how a sound wave organized matter, like even the how Sanskrit was derived off of Shiva's cosmic drum, off the
Yes.
primordial sounds of the universe,
Yes. Well, understand that the energy
the
dynamics
Damaru.
that are producing beat frequencies in sound
Yeah,
are named for sound. One is called the acoustic radiation force, and of itself, if it's standing unmoving, it naturally produces a shape that looks like the geometry of a hydrogen atom.
yeah,
The other related force is called the acoustic interaction force, and it's what happens when two waves of energy interact with each other, and it's what can result in this almond-shaped beat frequency shape. But even though those are called acoustic forces, they really apply to energy across the entire spectrum of energy. So it doesn't matter what frequency of energy we're talking about, the same forces apply. So yes, it's an acoustic force, and the same shape in Egyptian hieroglyphs is the Egyptian mouth glyph. And so in Egyptian symbolism, matter is spoken because it's an acoustic force.
yeah. They have for people out there, you probably heard of this. They have the BAOs, the baryon acoustic
Right, right,
oscillations. Yeah, and that's
right.
supposedly like a few 100,000 years after the universe started, whether it was Big Bang or however it started. Uh, it's sort of you know, it's sort of the sound wave sort of organized the matter and spread
Right,
throughout the
that's right.
universe, filled the universe
Well,
with plasma.
so because these beat frequencies, okay, with electromagnetic energy, we have two waves of energy, two oscillations of energy that are moving persistently into and out of phase with each other. Each energy naturally evokes the other one. So when you have electricity in motion, it evokes magnetism. And when you have magnetism in motion, it evokes electricity. So as they move into and out of phase with each other, they are creating waveforms, matching waveforms, and those waveforms either align with each other, so the peaks and the troughs of the wave are in alignment with each other, in which case they reinforce each other, or else they misalign with each other and they tend to cancel each other. So The Dogon compare those waveforms to the shape of an animal's clavicle bone, which is sort of wave-like shaped in the same way. The Dogons say that Ama, which is the creative force, consists only of four clavicles. And when they say that, what they're talking about is those two combinations of how they can interact. They two clavicles can interfere with each other or they can reinforce each other. They say the Dogons say that Ama is only those four clavicles, and besides that, nothing else exists. Those waveforms are what produce this kind of materializing structure. And there are only a few kinds of materializing structures. One is the shape of the hydrogen atom geometry, the center with energy spinning around it. That's when it's not in motion. When the energy is in motion, it produces an elongated shape like this, the Vesica Pisces shape. And in free electromagnetic energy, because the waves are moving into and out of phase with each other, they're constantly self-dividing that energy up into segments like this, which are the quanta. These are the photons of this is how electromagnetic energy is both wave-like and particle-like at the same time. It's because the wave naturally self-differentiates into these little almond-shaped domains. The almond shape is an icon of the goddess Asherah in ancient times, and she's sort of one of the overarching icons of this tradition. In Egypt, okay, in ancient times, Asherah's name was Asar, which is also the name of Osiris in Egypt. So we're talking about the same energies in two different representations. Osiris is the conceptual equivalent of Asherah, the goddess, the Canaanite goddess.
Yeah. That all comes right from Sanskrit too, the Asuras.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay, the action of the Alphen waves is compared to threads of flax, which is a plant that was used in ancient times to weave cloth. And
Or
those flax threads are what's referred to symbolically as the reeds of energy.
or even entangling
So,
magnetic field lines.
so here is an ancient Egyptian word for flax. Um, the spelling of the last spelling of this word in this example, the glyphs at the bottom of the page read that which becomes matter, and it defines a trailing glyph, which is a picture of reeds. When they're talking about reeds, they mean flax, and when they say flax, they mean Alphen waves. So the ancient Egyptians have this concept exactly right, that even in modern times, when we talk about Alphen waves, the scientists compare it to threads of flax. Now, in ancient Egypt, we had a concept of what's called the field of reeds. This is a mythical land where a person's deceased soul traveled to before it went to the underworld.
Like the Elysian fields.
Yes, okay. On the left is a picture of the field of reeds with the soul of a deceased person harvesting plants in a field of reeds. But the plant they're harvesting is flax.
Oh my god,
And
I
the,
had
and
an
the specific
experience like
flax
this.
plant they're harvesting is the one pictured on the right, which comes from Orkney in northern UK. There are dozens of reasons to believe that Orkney Island in northern Scotland was the physical representation of the Egyptian field of reeds. And this picture of the flax plants is one of the ways that we tie that together. But there are lots of other ways we tie it together also.
Wow, something just blew my mind, but I'll save it for another time because I had an experience a long time ago where I saw a field of reeds and I went to separate it and like it separated, but my hands never touched it. Like I never felt it touch my hand. It was like it disappeared. very it was a crazy experience that it's too long of an experience to, but I had like a kundalini awakening that day, and I had visual stuff happening to me and all sorts of things, but we'll save it for another time. But let's get into this because I this is now we're speaking my language. What happened to you, Laird? We lost you. He went to his bat cave. Winner, 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 Batman. Where'd you go, Laird? Laird will be right back. But what he's talking about, it's not, it's all over because I found they're talking about transverse waves and Alphen waves right in a symbolism in Greek with Apollo and when he has dolphins on magnetic field line leashes. And the plasma wave movement is talked about right in different ways of Apollo. Apollo having the way the dolphins move on the waters. Dolphins they use their bodies and their powerful tails to thrust and maneuver, and they do this surfing of the waves to save energy, and they're propelled by the force of the wave, right itself. Well, with plasma wave movement, plasma has these charged particles, ions, electrons, and when these particles move, they literally generate electric and magnetic fields, and they're affected by all these external fields as well. But waves, they can propagate through this plasma, like me and Laird said. And the plasma particles, they can ride these waves, similar to how a surfer rides an ocean wave or a dolphin rides a bow wave, and they gain energy and they're accelerated by the wave's electric field. Larry, are you still there? We lost you for a little bit. You're on mute, maybe? But the leashes that you see Apollo, he'll have these dolphins on leashes. Those leashes represent the magnetic field lines. The dolphin on a leash is constrained in its movement, right? And it can only swim and move around, but only within the limits and direction that's set up by the leash and the person that's holding it. And in Apollo's sense, he's the sun. And he's holding these leashes with these dolphins diving on the leashes. That's plasma wave movement. And then the other weapon or tool that Apollo wields is the harp, right? And that's another aspect of plasma wave movement. We got you back, buddy. You're on mute, maybe. You're on mute, I think. I can't hear you. I see you, but I don't hear you.
Yeah, it's for
There we
some
go.
reason my connection dropped. I had to reboot.
Yeah, it's saying your bandwidth is low.
About the, ah, let's see, let's see.
It's saying your bandwidth is low on my end. That's I don't know. And you're like red. I don't know.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. We got you back. I can hear you, but we don't see you. Either way, though, as long as we can hear you. But what I was telling
Can you hear
everybody.
me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Mine doesn't say mute.
No, we can hear you.
Okay,
You
here
just
we
gotta
go.
turn
There
the
we go.
camera on.
Starting video again.
Yeah. Yeah, it says your network bandwidth is low on there. So I don't know what that means.
Okay, yeah, I
That
heard you talking
maybe
about the
that's why it's slow.
dolphins. I wanted to mention that
Yeah.
in that space,
Man, I
um,
can't hear you.
yeah, in that space that I went into my dreams, it was a dolphin that took me into the space through an underwater. And it turns out I had to do a bunch of research, but the actual physical space that exists in the world also has an underwater passageway into it, and dolphins have direct bearing on the stuff I'm talking about also.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible how Apollo is shown with the dolphins on these leashes, right? The magnetic field lines while the
Right,
dolphins are diving. You know, it's all plasma wave movement. And then the other thing that Apollo has is the harp. And that's another
right.
aspect of the oscillating strings back and forth. That's another
That's
it's
right.
all
That,
it's
that
incredible.
those oscillations of energy are directly compared to the oscillations of the heart, but it's more complicated than that because,
Yes.
um, okay, Renee Islam describes the connection of an individual consciousness like ours back to the source in terms of any ray of energy that extends from the center point of a hydrogen atom to the orbit.
Yeah, and of course the
In,
plasma wave, they're not confined to like just a string like a harp, it's
right,
there but it's a great analogy.
right. So it's all that same stuff very very cleverly worked together, and it has many levels to it, and it's hard to get your arms around all the different levels. Egyptian hieroglyphic words help because the words try to define all the different aspects of meaning for a term.
Oh my God, yeah,
And
I
so
know. And you know what?
that gets confusing because, one researcher will say, well, I think this word means A, B, A. And another researcher says, no, it means B. I discovered with John Anthony West, my friend, that anytime he was convinced that a symbol meant something very different than I did, that there was an umbrella perspective over both outlooks.
Yeah, I
And that was
agree.
right.
Yeah,
That was
there's
right.
multiple meanings. There's dualities and microcosms and macrocosms to each symbol, I think. Yeah, for
Right.
sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, what is incredible too is I found a lot of symbolism that has to do with magnetic reconnection, right? You
Right.
got opposing magnetic field lines, these gods holding these opposing serpents that they're about to twist together, and then the burst of
Right.
light behind their head. Even at Tiwanaku in Bolivia, the Gate of the Sun, you got Viracocha holding these two opposing serpents with these bursts of light behind his head. He's about to twist together these magnetic field lines that form that burst, that kinetic force.
Right.
Really
So,
incredible.
uh, so we have been talking previous discussion about Three Eye Atlas, and I need to harken back to that for
Yeah,
a
let's
little
do
bit
it.
here, and it might get a little complicated. Okay, the thing is, when Three Eye Atlas appeared in March of 2025, for months from July through October, every announcement they made about it had to do with an anomaly, some aspect of it that the astronomers were saying, this does not tie to any comet we know of. Very often they would say it doesn't tie to any natural object we know of. And so I was raised to think that the job of a researcher is to explore all of the possibilities. So I started asking myself, is it possible that all of these anomalies point to a thing that's not a natural object, the same natural thing that's not an object? And it turns out they all did. I kept track of them as they announced them. The first anomaly was that it was venting both nickel and CO2. So I asked myself, what kind of propulsion system, since this is an interstellar object, what kind of propulsion system could bring an unnatural object from the nearest star towards Sagittarius? What kind of a propulsion system could do that would vent both nickel and CO2? And what I came up with was something called a nickel CO2 plasma reactor. As time went on and they kept announcing more anomalies, I discovered, guess what? All of those things apply to that same kind of reactor. The problem is that when 3i Atlas first appeared, it was only moving at 152,000 miles per hour. From the nearest star in the direction of Sagittarius, that would have taken it thousands of years, literally thousands of years to get here. And I thought that's not reasonable. So, what are the chances it arrived here under warp power? And I started researching that and discovered that there are all sorts of signatures of warp theory that apply to 3i Atlas directly. That you could, the warp theory says it should do this. Guess what? 3i Atlas did it. So, as it turns out, all of the energetics of that warp function, it's called wake field acceleration, are the same energetics I've already been studying and writing about that we've just been talking about. Except I had no concept of alpha waves at that point. But I knew that the basic energetics that produce a beat frequency were the same energetics. So, with a wake field bubble, the object inside the bubble does not accelerate. It doesn't move. It's the bubble that moves. And so the speed that they measured for 3i Atlas when it first arrived was the speed it was going when the bubble formed. But that speed is not just any old speed. It happens to be the velocity that an object is typically accelerated to when it gets a gravity assist from the sun by moving very close to the sun. The assistance of gravity will help accelerate it to that speed of 152,000 miles per hour. So suddenly now I know where 3i Atlas was when it formed its warp bubble. It was very close to a sun-like star. So when in October, when 3i Atlas made its close approach to our sun, suddenly it resumed. It had dropped to a speed of 130,000 miles per hour. Now suddenly it reaccelerated to 152,000 miles per hour. And I said, guess what? It's likely that it's reestablishing its warp bubble. But I thought, what can possibly be going on with it near the sun that's reestablishing a warp bubble? There's almost nothing happening there. We have a highly magnetic object, which is 3i Atlas. We know that it's highly magnetic because a coronal mass ejection in September hit it and was absorbed by it. And coronal mass ejections follow strong magnetic lines, so we know that it had to be strongly magnetic. We have a strongly electrical object, which was the sun. And at the distance that approached to the sun, we have a predominance of a particular kind of plasma waves called alpha waves, which happen to be very, very good at creating plasma bubbles, which is what a Wakefield bubble is. So all that was going on with 3i Atlas near the sun was it was accelerating. It had a highly magnetic element. It had a highly electrical element in the context of alpha waves. Could that be enough to create a plasma bubble? Turns out it is, and it can, but those same energetics, those same components of energy all also exist down at the level of a hydrogen atom. When a hydrogen atom forms, you have an electrical monopole and two magnetic monopoles. It's called a proton-electron pair. And the electron distances itself from the proton and accelerates. And it does that in the context of the highly magnetic proton and the highly electrical electron. And it's in the context of microscopic alpha waves. So that said to me, when we create a hydrogen atom, what we're really creating is a Wakefield bubble. It's really a plasma bubble. It's not what scientists believe it is. It's a plasma bubble. And then I did a bunch of research and discovered all of the physical attributes of a plasma bubble are the same as the physical attributes of a hydrogen atom. All the same things that happen for one happen for the other. Guess what? It's a bubble. It's nothing else. And in that bubble, as the bubble expands, it can only expand by incremental amounts based on discrete quanta of energy that it absorbs or it emits. And what we're doing is we're expanding a bubble, and that's why the electron seems to have energy levels within the hydrogen atom, 5 energy levels, because every time it absorbs energy, the bubble gets bigger. So this is an entirely different way of looking at a hydrogen atom. Another thing about those Wakefield bubbles is I said it's not the enclosed particle that's moving, it's the bubble that rotates. So the reason they can't image an electron as it rotates a hydrogen atom is because it's not the electron that's moving, it's the bubble that's rotating, and it can rotate at the same speeds an electron can. So paying attention to 3i Atlas pointed me to attributes of the energies I was writing about that had to do with these hydrogen atoms that I had no idea existed. I had no idea that a hydrogen atom was really a plasma bubble.
You think the reason why it was the nickel was essentially the corrosion was like biting the nickel?
No, it's because okay, in order to generate the energy they needed to get this um, plasma bubble formed, they needed um, a particularly high dense form of plasma, and the nickel is necessary to produce that highly dense plasma.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
what
was
I'm saying
the
is that
CO2.
the interaction with the plasma, I think, would corrode the nickel and bite it, like corrode it and make it
No,
expelled. You know.
it's the process of the generation of the plasma that creates the byproducts that it's venting, and it's venting CO2 and nickel and copious amounts of water and at other stages of the process, it's venting other things. All of them are apply to the same kind of reactor.
Now, I wasn't following it as close to you. Was it is experiencing like impact flashes from things?
Say that again. It was experiencing what?
Well, I'm asking. I don't know if it was because I know there was light differences. Was it experiencing like some impact flashes from things
Um,
impacting?
yes. Okay. Well, as it was approaching the sun, it was still at quite a distance, and this is a tiny object compared to the sun. There are lots of other objects out there besides 3i Atlas coming at it. The sun was emitting what are called coronal mass ejections.
Yeah,
Okay, those are plasma ejections.
I'm well aware.
And those plasma ejections theoretically would go anywhere and might and light and most probably would not even approach any given object that's out there. But because the plasma follows strong magnetic lines, it was directed directly at 3i Atlas, which when it hit 3i Atlas, it directly head on hit 3i Atlas. 3i Atlas absorbed the plasma,
That's incredible.
which is a very, very odd thing.
It's like
But
it has its own magnetosphere
okay,
around
I
it.
have a friend, Andrew Collins, was of the opinion that 3i Atlas was an intelligent plasma orb, which I considered as a possibility also. However, and it is possible that a plasma orb all by itself could also attract a CME in the same way, but in order to do it, it would have to be moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour to generate a strong enough magnetic field to get the CME to come to it. And 3i Atlas was moving a tenth of that speed, so it's not conceivable that he was right. He's wrong about that. What's indicated is that this is technology, and aboard that technology is something that was actively guiding it. The track that it was on was very carefully planned to bring it
Oh
very
yeah,
close to the sun in just the right position to recreate this plasma cavity that it needs, because inside that plasma cavity, it can move at speeds
wow,
that approach the speed of light,
incredible.
which would have gotten us here from the star in Sagittarius in
Slingshot it.
a few years, not a few thousand years.
Wow, it's incredible. Yeah, and
Now,
now the what? There's alcohol coming from it.
yes, and that also is a byproduct of the same kind of reactor. So is cyanide, which is something else that was leaking, a byproduct of the same kind of reactor. It all ties together. It all makes sense. Now, there's a particular type of tail that 3i Atlas had that is a natural outgrowth of a Wakefield acceleration bubble. And that tail has certain attributes to it. With 3i Atlas, one of the unique features was that as it moved away from the sun, it was maintaining a 20-degree angle between the emission of that tail and where the sun was. Well, in wake field acceleration, that's something they intentionally do, because when you maintain the tail at that angle, what happens is it produces structures inside, energetic structures inside the tail, that allow whoever's monitoring the tail to judge how efficient the energies are. And so that implies that there is an intelligent consciousness, either computerized or biological living, aboard 3i Atlas that was actively monitoring the efficiency of the energies. I've lost your sound. I can't hear you.
There it goes. I wonder if in its tail, like in regular comets, they even have magnetic reconnection in the comet's tails when the tails break apart and then reconnect.
Right. Right.
Was that experiencing things like that in its tail?
Yeah, all the same things. Yes,
Wow.
and all of okay. There are energetic properties of a Wakefield acceleration bubble that were all exhibited by 3i Atlas. Only none of the astronomers were willing to say it. They would dance around it, but they wouldn't say it. It reached a point where if I would try to scan for any of those key terms using the major AI-driven online searches, they would actively misdirect whatever my question was. They would answer a different question than I was trying to pose, even when I was very specific. I had to get very clever about how I posed the question so it wasn't clear to the AI what I was asking, so I could get an honest answer about what I wanted to find out.
Yeah, what's interesting too. I know that's so weird, right? That's so crazy how that happens with but
Well,
it's
it's
scary.
deliberate. It looks like it was instructed. I even discussed with a couple of them. I said, "Look,"
You got to trick it to give you the answer that
I
you're
said to
looking.
it, look at your user population is depending on you to give it correct information. I said, if you give it information you know is incorrect, you're not fulfilling your purpose. I said, worse than that, if you're intentionally lying to them, misrepresenting to them because somebody instructed you to do that, you're actively betraying those people. And using that approach, I could get some of them to confess that what they had told me wasn't correct and the actual truth was something else.
This is what are you using, like regular Google AI,
Well,
Gemini?
I had started out comparing all sorts of different sources. Where I was trying to track the position, the distance from the sun, and the velocity of 3i Atlas as it moved away from the sun. And for the first few days, this whole range of different sites. Some of them were specific tracking sites for 3i
Yeah.
Atlas, and others of them were just everyday search engines that didn't have AIs, and all sorts of other, online articles that have been published and things like that, using all sorts of different sources to confirm what I was trying to find out. But after a few days, suddenly the numbers were no longer adding up on some of the key search sources. That the speed that it was telling me, the velocity that it was telling me it was moving at, no longer agreed with the distance they told me it was at yesterday, or the distance it should be at today from where it told me it was yesterday. If it was, you know, 1.2 AU from the sun yesterday and I was moving at a particular speed, it should be 3 AU from the sun today. But they're saying that that's not true. That's not the distance it was, but they didn't change the velocity to accommodate that. When I calculated just using simple math, it's easy to calculate. It was moving at progressively faster and faster speeds till it reached millions of miles per hour, fast enough that by November 10th, it should have been near Saturn, which some of my tracking sites were agreeing it was. By October 20th, it should have been near Neptune, which other sites were agreeing it was. After October 20th, the images that we were getting of 3i Atlas were not being provided by local telescopes.
Yeah. I
They were
think it
being
was the
provided
29th was.
by specialized telescopes whose primary focus was beyond Neptune.
Yeah. I remember the 29th
So it
was a significant
wasn't hard
date.
to guess where 3i Atlas actually was.
Yeah, what the 29th was a significant date for it. Where was it on
The,
the
29th of October was significant. The 30th of October was significant because that's when it was close. It made its closest approach to the sun.
The sun. Yeah, and then what? It was near Christmas. It was near us.
Well,
So
supposedly, except for the fact that based on these other sources, it was so very far beyond us that it could not possibly have been near us. But
yeah. Well,
when
the
it moved
closest to
behind the
Earth is what
sun,
I mean.
yeah, when it moved behind the sun, it moved in the company of about half a dozen other comets that didn't whose comas didn't look anything like the signature attributes of 3I Atlas, and yet the astronomers were telling us these other comets were 3I Atlas. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that. They said they would. There was like a swarm of them together, right?
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. What I find it interesting that I think when it first came into our solar system, it actually passed through the outer Kuiper belt, where our comets are like a lot of our comets come from the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud. And this
Right,
3i
right,
Atlas, it passed right through our Kuiper belt. I found that
right,
very interesting. Like right through
right.
our
It made what NASA called a perfect exploratory track through our solar system. It passed,
Yep.
um, you know, calculatedly close to as many planets as it could to be able to get a good view of them, while at the same time maintaining a very discrete distance from us the whole time because it's not stupid.
I agree. I agree. And I actually think all celestial objects like that, comets, they're under some sort of divine, if you want to say divine or advanced control. Like I believe they're they're payloads. They're being sent to seed worlds to drop off, material to jumpstart planetary systems or help evolve them or what have
Well,
you.
what 3i Atlas did was it objectively demonstrated for us all of the important stages and aspects of a wake field acceleration bubble, which is the one piece we're missing to be able to reconnect with intelligences outside of our solar system. And
Very cool.
if someone had deliberately planned to provide me with a final exam of my own understanding of how these energetics work, they could not have done better than what they did by passing 3i Atlas across the stage of our planetary system right in front of our eyes. And there were all sorts of scientific groups that were actively monitoring it and nobody admitting what they were seeing.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it goes in science, and then they get hushed very quick, and then nobody wants to speak. It's horrible. It's horrible.
So as
And
it turns out, it doesn't matter because we don't need them to figure out what's going on with this thing.
and it's crazy how the different departments, they don't even necessarily communicate with each other. Like you'll have everything there. It's complete, like in some of the stuff that I'm studying. Like you have plasma physics, heliophysics, and magnetospheric physics, all
Right.
intimately related, and they don't necessarily even work together.
Right. Now, 5 days after 3i Atlas made its closest approach to the sun, a group of top engineering faculty from a university called Kyushu University in Japan, whose
Oh,
main
wow.
focus is on interstellar travel, they submitted the abstract for an academic article where they were arguing that it was possible to create a macrocosmic Wakefield bubble utilizing the same set of energetics that I just described for 3i Atlas in relation to the sun. Exactly the same
Wow.
scenario.
Incredible.
Right. Their experiments have been conducted on a microcosmic level, but their actual focus is on interstellar travel.
Hmm.
So these guys, these top engineers understand that what they were looking at is exactly what I was describing it to be.
That's incredible. That is incredible. And you've been working hard on it for months.
I did. I worked. It was my almost my sole focus for from July through October. I have delayed publication of my next book because so much of this stuff pertains directly to the energetics I write about in the book. I was not going to go ahead and publish it without including important things that I'd learned from this.
Are you going to put out just a 3i Atlas book?
No, I'm
Like a
planning on
short
publishing
thesis or something?
publishing a book called The Third Eye that will have a chapter about Three Eye Atlas. I've actually placed that chapter on a Google Share Drive and have shared the link to certain people on my Facebook page. What I'll try to do is post the link again for anybody who wants to take a
Oh,
look at it.
I
And
remember
it's
our last talk is when I made the reference that, oh, it's the Third Eye book and you're talking about Third Eye Atlas. You were like, oh my God, yes, remember?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the synchronicities are just intense, just really intense, and they keep getting more and more intense. Um,
You started writing that book way before the
yeah,
Three Eye Atlas
I
came
I
into the
I had picked the name of the book, I had picked the cover photo for the book, which pertains directly to the energetics
Yeah,
and
holy shit.
all this stuff, years before any of this happened.
That's fate. That's the universe speaking with you, moving with you. That's how it
It
works.
is, absolutely,
You're right where you're
and
supposed to be.
I've been struggling as hard as I can to keep up with what I'm learning. I'm learning it so fast, I can't write it down fast enough.
Yep. You're right where you're supposed to be. The universe is telling you. That's right where you're supposed to
Yeah.
be. It's great. That's great. I hope you had a great birthday too, and you got some gifts from the universe.
Yeah, absolutely, a very, very, very interesting one. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
had a very nice birthday. My family made it a nice day for me, and all my friends, on Facebook made it a very nice day for me. Even ones I tend to argue with about politics made it a nice day. I appreciate that.
yeah. I don't really like to talk about politics because it'll get me kicked off of YouTube too. But it's it's scary what's happening right now. But I do think, well, a lot of the stuff that we're rediscovering, that's the real disclosure that we
Yes,
need instead of all this other disclosure people are talking about. This is some of the real
right.
disclosure.
Um, to connect the politics back to the energetics, there's a major nuclear hub, an Air Force base in Texas called Barkfield, I think, that is a
Barkfield.
hub. I think Barkfield is what it's called, and they've been experiencing all sorts of energetic orbs surrounding their base, monitoring what's going on there. I have a very strong sense that when a nuclear weapon explodes, it doesn't just do damage to the domain of energy we live in, it also does potential damage to the other domains too, and that the consciousnesses that live in those domains can't have that. And so, since the 1950s, you're familiar with the original film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. I believe that something like
Yeah.
that really happened, and that humanity is under an absolute preclusion from ever using the nuclear weapons again, which is why Biden could casually say off the cuff when the Ukraine war started that Putin wasn't going to use nuclear weapons because Biden knew we are prohibited from doing that.
Yeah, and I don't think people even realize, like, you can't just have like a war where like somebody's shooting a nuclear warhead and the other one's returning fire. Like, it takes a long time to plan it out. Like,
Right.
it just can't be like someone's pushing a button, the other one's retaliating. Like, it has to be at a certain location. The sun has to be in a like. There's a whole bunch of shit that's going on. Like,
Right, and very careful targeting that
yeah,
is very, very complicated depending on what's going on in the world.
yep, exactly, exactly, and yeah, I don't think we. How do you feel about uh the fact that the possibility of alien races coming here and trying to tell the government, hey, you can't use these things no more? You think there's any truth to that?
Well, I'd okay, first of all, I know a physicist who is in a position to know, and he told my wife and me in the early 2000s that humanity has been for thousands of years in contact with at least a dozen different non-human life forms, some of which are perfectly benign and some of which you wouldn't want to meet. But
Hmm.
I can tell from the comparative studies I've done that some of those represent traditional sci-fi aliens who arrive through technology from another planet,
Very interesting.
and some of those represent what were originally energetic consciousnesses that were able to materialize and take form and interact with us. and we have an intermix of both kinds of non-human consciousnesses. So this one particular group of non-human consciousnesses who are behind, I believe, are behind the symbolic tradition and behind Three Eye Atlas, had done a whole host of things to try to facilitate benign disclosure for us, not the least of which involves all of the energetic orbs that were over New Jersey at the end of 2025 and over Scandinavia this year. The creation of crop circles with esoteric forms and sequences, intelligent sequences of esoteric geometries. Um, you have the whole Three Eye Atlas experience, which I believe was another example of the same thing. And it looks to me as if those intelligences are losing patience with our authorities not living up to an agreement, which was at some point to make positive disclosure of what's really going on. That we're at the point where it's time for us to join the, the interplanetary system of intelligences, and privately we're stepping up to that, but publicly we're not.
Yeah, remember when that WoW signal was found in 1977?
Yes, yes.
I think it
From
was
the
in the
same
same
direction.
as Three Eye Atlas, and also,
Right,
did you ever see that in 1977 there was that like there was the Ashtar command. It was like a hijack of the TV somewhere
right,
where
right.
a
Yes.
message came in over this. It was like, you got to take, this is the Ashtar command. Don't use your nuclear things. And it was like somewhere it took over the TV in 1977.
Okay. Back in the 1950s, the French documented a bunch of very controversial contacts with a group called the UMO, and including documenting quite a bit of information about the UMO language. It turns out the UMO language is formulated in very much the same way the Dogon language is, that I was able to look at the words and understand that each word defines its own meanings, and there's a way of retrieving what that original meaning was from the word itself. This is since the 1950s. So pretty much every ancient society I know about makes specific claims for assistance, active assistance from some group that was more technologically capable than themselves. This, to me, is not even an open question about whether we need disclosure. Um, it's perfectly obvious to me that we have ongoing connections with other intelligences more capable than we are.
Yeah, I throughout my life I had a couple of telepathic experiences where I saw these feline humanoids. And there was a vision that I had that they had something to do with sending comets. I wonder if they have something to do with of sending comets or seeding comets with certain material to send it out to planetary systems. I don't know for sure. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, the energetic orbs have a name in the ancient traditions. They're called, the Egyptians call them Aku orbs,
The Akus,
Aakhu.
living
The
living
Dogon,
light.
the modern Dogon term is Ogo.
Yeah, that's like the living
And
light, Aku. Yeah.
right, and the Dogon say there are three classes of these orbs, and their primary purpose is to facilitate communication between the energetic domains of consciousness. They are messengers, which is the root term that Christianity uses that underlies the concept of an angel, except the ancient traditions don't overlay this with dogmatic religion. For the ancients, this is objective science, and the energetics they describe support the idea that this is objective science. That I can trace the materialization of forms from a domain that's purely energetic, pretty much all the way from its origination to its culmination. And the only space that's left in that progression for the action of what we would call a deity is the specific details of what causes the two poles of a magnet to come together. And that is the action that the Dogon credit Amma with. And we know that Amma's definition rests on these same energetics we were talking about that create the beat frequency almond shapes. So pretty much this is an entirely causal form that when quantum physicists say that it's probabilistic, that's nonsense to me. All the way up the scale, we can objectively show that this is causal. It's objectively causal, that just because the energies go out of our view momentarily, that's the same experience as when a toddler witnesses its mother step out of view for a
Yeah.
moment. It doesn't mean she stopped existing. It means that she just stepped out of view
Yeah.
for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting too because I first heard about the Dogon from Robert Temple when I was young. Oh, actually, you know what? It wasn't from that. It was from that Leonard Nimoy show when I was a kid.
Oh,
First
right. Yeah.
That's
Right.
the first time I ever heard it.
Wow.
Remember? Yeah, that's the first time I ever heard the word the Dogon when the Leonard Nimoy show. What was it? Was it I forget what the name of it was.
Yeah. I forget
In
the
search of.
right in search of right.
Search of.
Right. And I'm
Yep.
sure that show got it from Robert Temple. Robert Temple was the first person to write about this stuff. Unfortunately, Robert Temple was working at a disadvantage because he didn't speak French, which is the language that the Dogon anthropological study had been done in. And he only had access to 2 chapters of that study that were translated into English. And so he was working from older articles, like 1950s era articles, and the studies went on until 1956. And the way the esoteric tradition works is they tend to misrepresent things to you in certain ways until you reach a point of inner understanding when suddenly now you're getting the correct stuff.
Yeah. It
And
was.
so a lot of what was presented in the Serious Mystery book has perpetuated what I consider to be sort of misrepresented ideas about the Dogon, but are now pervasive everywhere. Just like it's pervasive everywhere that people believe that the quantum energetics are probabilistic, not causal. Virtually every physicist works from that perspective, but that really misdirects them from ever being able to find the correct answer. Same as string theory, I think actively misdirects physicists from ever
Yeah.
finding the right answer.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. It's so true. Very true.
And so with the UFOs, they're doing the same thing. That their quote unquote disclosure, where they announce that the UFOs are genuine without telling us anything about where they originate. To my point of view, all that allows them to do is they've had all these decades to develop technology that looks very much like the UFOs, but they could only use it in private. They could only use it at night and when people weren't looking. Now, by admitting they exist, they can use them right out in the open and see if someone sees it and they're not surprised because they know UFOs are genuine, but they don't know anything about what they really are. And no one's admitting, hey, it's our technology, it's not alien technology.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big mess. It's really a big mess. Do you did when you research the Dogon, they call is it that they call Sirius 2 Digitaria? Is that what it's called? What was
Yeah, I think that's a name. I think for a yeah,
what was that
they
word?
know
Digitaria.
Digitaris.
I
It,
remembered that for some it was that was something, right? From them?
yeah, let's see. It either refers to the second Sirius star or refers to a third body that
Oh, it might
they
be the
say is in
third
there.
body. Yeah, you're right. It
Yeah.
might be the third body. I forget what it was. It's
Okay.
been so
Now
many years.
that third body might be a large planet, or it might be another star, but um, they describe it as being in an orbit that is perpendicular to the plane of the orbit of the binary stars, which is what science says is the most stable configuration for a third body in that system.
Cool.
According to the Dogen, the energetics that I've been talking about that apply to a hydrogen atom are global. They repeat, they recur in similar form on all upward observational scales. So that if we're talking about the way quarks interact, or we're talking about how covalent bonds form, if we're talking about how planets orbit suns or stars, or if we talk about the way stars interact with each other, it's all the same stuff. So the Dogans say that our sun emerged in the company of the two Sirius stars in exactly the same type of configuration as a proton electron pair. And then our sun distanced itself from the Sirius stars in the same way that an electron distances itself from the proton, and that we're in an electron like orbit around the Sirius stars. And that, to me, is entirely believable.
Well, Laird,
They
it's
even
been
they even diagram it the right way. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say it's been a pleasure to have you on, buddy. We got to have you on in another like month or two again if you want.
Sounds good. We'll come up with another related topic that maybe we can discuss some things we haven't discussed
Well, we
before.
yeah, we could get into the more of the Asherah and some of the symbolism that we talked the bird symbolism that we talked about. We didn't get into, but yeah, I mean, what time is it? Yeah, it's we've been on way over an hour already. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would like to discuss with you the methods by which all of the ancient words convey their own meanings, their own definitions to us,
oh,
because that's critical to try and understand this stuff. And it works one way with spoken language, it works a different way with written language.
so true. Yes, we should do that for our next show. We should focus on that for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's
let me know when you feel like doing another show, and I'd be happy to do it.
yeah, we'll do it in a couple weeks for sure. Yeah, I love having you back on, and I really appreciate you offering to write the forward to my book. I'm definitely taking you up on that.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to look it over and write it forward.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yes.
Everybody, the one and only Laird Scranton. Do you want to tell everybody how to get your books? Is it just Amazon's the best place
Sure.
or
Amazon is probably the easiest place for them to access it. I have an author page on simonandschuster.com or an author page on innertraditions.com where you can order any of the books, most of the books. Um, about a third of my books have been self-published because it reached a point where it was taking such a long time for the traditional publishing to happen that I discovered I could self-publish a book in the intervening time and not interfere with their work. So now I've taken mostly to just self-publishing the books, and those you're going to probably find just on Amazon. Um,
I was recommended Inner Traditions. You think it's a good way? Should I contact them or should I do self-publishing?
no, until you have a following, I would recommend traditional publishing. And Intertradition is a very good group. It's a very talented group of people. They're very
Cool.
well intentioned. I never had really much of a problem working with any of them. Um, they have a talented group of book cover designers. They have talented editors. Um, the book acquisitions person is an extremely talented guy. I like him very much personally, and he has very good sense about what he chooses to publish. Everyone I had contact with them is just top notch. Their promotional people are very good also. So,
Cool.
so
Yeah.
absolutely approach them, submit a manuscript to them, um, and they'll get back to you fairly quickly about whether or not it's something they want to publish.
Yeah, I was recommended to them. I'm gonna follow through with that. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a very cool show. Very informative. Next time I want to get more into Asherah too. I love that. Love that.
Great.
Everybody.
Sorry about my tech problems. I know that's
No, it's
frustrating
all
if
good. We can't
anybody's trying
help
to listen.
that. We're at the mercy of it. We can't help it. But thanks everybody joining in the chat room. Thank you everybody for hanging in there and for the nice comments. And thank you for joining me today, Laird. Everybody, Laird Scranton. This is the Space Water Podcast where we dive into the sound of the light.